Mr. President, I take this time as the ranking Democrat on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee to bring to the attention of my colleagues the number of nominees in important foreign policy areas that have been acted on by the Senate Foreign Relations Committee but have not been acted on by the floor of the United States Senate. There's currently 15 nominees that have been recommended favorably by the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. In most of these cases, Mr. President, they were unanimous votes in the committee. And I'm confident to say in each of these cases, there's been no questions raised as to the qualifications of the individuals to fill these particular positions. We're talking about senior members of the State Department, diplomatic team. We're talking about ambassadors in countries around the world. We're talking about people that have extremely important positions in regards to our national security. These positions are critically important to our country, and they have remained vacant in some cases for over a year. So it's been a long period of time that we have not acted on these nominations. Now, the reason we have not acted on these nominations, quite frankly, is that there is a member of the Senate or more than one member of the Senate that has put what is known as a hold on these nominations. And what that means is that a senator has indicated that he or she is going to object to the consideration of the nomination on the floor. That's normally done in order to get a little bit of attention on an issue. And in my understanding, in each of these cases, these holds have nothing to do with the qualification of the person for the position to be filled, but it's to give the member an opportunity to get some additional help on other issues or to raise other concerns. So, Mr. President, here's the problem. In some cases, these holds have been for over a year. In some cases, we've talked about months and months and months that a position has gone unfilled because of the hold. Now, how can we overcome that? Well, we can overcome that by the senator releasing the hold and allowing the nomination to come to the floor for a vote. In many cases, I expect there will be unanimous consent since there's been no objections raised, and we can move forward with the nomination. Or quite frankly, it's the majority leader, the Republican leader, who controls the agenda of the floor of the United States Senate. And the majority leader could move to executive session, file a cloture motion, and if 60 members of the Senate want to move forward with the nomination, and I expect in each one of these cases, we're probably talking about almost unanimous votes in the United States Senate for these nominations. We would pass a cloture motion. After the hours have passed, we would have an up or down vote on the nomination. But quite frankly, that wouldn't happen. If the Republican leader, the majority leader, would bring announce that we were going to have a cloture vote on a Thursday or Friday and that we stay in a weekend in order to finish the nomination, which is typically the case here, we would get it resolved before we left for the weekend. And as you know, we've been completing our work on Thursday. There's plenty of opportunity to take up nominations. We have extensive periods of time that we are in state work periods. There are plenty of opportunities for us to take nominations up on the floor for votes. But all we need to do is say, look, by this date certain, if we don't have your answers, we're going to go to a cloture vote. It would certainly move a lot of these nominations. So, Mr. President, I think it's unacceptable that 15 of our positions right now are going unfilled because of holds by members of Congress. I think we have a responsibility to act. I am talking about positions on OPEC, I'm talking about IMF, I'm talking about ambassadors to Bahamas, Trinidad, Tobago, Mexico, Norway, Sweden. I'm talking about the U.S. representative to the IAEA, and we're talking about the Undersecretary of State. We're talking about ambassadors to Luxembourg, Burma. There's a whole list here of nominations that have gone unfilled. So what does this mean for our country? Well, if you don't have the Undersecretary of State for Political Affairs, that's the number 4 person in the State Department. That's the person who is responsible directly for all of the regional bureaus. for Europe, for the Middle East, for East Asia and the Pacific, for our hemisphere, for Africa. We don't have the principal person in the State Department confirmed for those regional concerns. That's a national security risk by not having a confirmed person for Undersecretary of State. And my colleagues are quick to be critical if they don't believe the administration is responding quick enough to certain concerns. For us not to respond for months on critical positions, to me, is compromising our national security. But it goes beyond that. In bilateral relationships with countries, the fact that they don't have a confirmed ambassador speaks volumes to that country's belief as to how important we think that relationship is. So if we're talking about a United States business person from South Carolina or Maryland who's trying to do business in Tobago, in Trinidad, and there's no confirmed ambassador, that person's at a disadvantage by not having a confirmed ambassador in that situation. Or we're talking about a family member trying to deal with a family issue in Norway, and we don't have a confirmed ambassador. That makes it more difficult for us to be able to represent our constituents because our number one person, our head of mission, has not been confirmed. So it affects our ability to strengthen bilateral relations. It affects our ability for national security, and it's absolutely wrong. I want to make one thing clear. It's an honor to serve on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, and it's an honor to be the ranking Democrat. Senator Corker, the chairman of that committee, and I work very closely together. I'm proud of the record of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee under Senator Corker's leadership. We've reported out timely these nominations. We've gathered the information about the person's qualifications. We've questioned the person. We've gone through the confirmation process to make sure that this body carries out its constitutional responsibility to approve executive nominations. We take our work very seriously, but we do it in a timely way, and we act in a timely way. And Senator Corker has been responsible for these nominations getting out of the committee promptly. But until the Senate acts, the person can't take on the responsibility. So now it's the responsibility of the United States Senate. And that's why I call upon my colleagues who have made these objections to withdraw those objections. They've been there for months, to let us move forward. And if they don't, I would ask that the majority leader give us time for a cloture vote, or at least announce a cloture vote. And if we did that, I would think that these nominations would comfortably move forward. Now, some of my colleagues are on the floor, and they're going to talk about specific nominees, and I'm going to yield to them shortly. But if I might, I'm going to raise 2 of the 15 today, and I'll do others at other points. But I'm going to talk about 2 of the nominees, and I could talk about a lot more. But let me talk about Tom Shannon for Undersecretary of State for Political Affairs. I want to tell the American people more about the qualifications of Ambassador Tom Shannon and the important post he has been nominated for. Mr. President, the Undersecretary for Political Affairs is the State Department's 4th-ranking official, responsible for the management of the 6 regional bureaus of the department, as well as the Bureau of International Organization Affairs. This is a tremendously important leadership post on key national security issues. Ambassador Tom Shannon, a career member of the diplomatic corps. He is a career diplomat, serving both under Democratic and Republican administrations, is held in universal respect and esteem by his colleagues, and has been nominated to this position, strongly supported by both Democrats and Republicans on the Foreign Relations Committee. I have twice spoken on the floor to ask unanimous consent for Ambassador Shannon, and I'm proud to again ask for his confirmation, because few diplomats have served our nation under both Republican and Democratic administrations with as much integrity and ability as Ambassador Shannon. In his current role as counselor of the department, he provides the secretary with his insight and advice on a wide range of issues. His previous service is formidable. He has been our ambassador to Brazil, was an assistant secretary of state and senior director of the National Security Council staff for Western Hemisphere affairs. Also served in challenging posts in Venezuela and South Africa, among others. A career diplomat, giving his life to foreign service. As I said, he has served different presidents for over 30 years. He should be confirmed today. Mr. Shannon has been now waiting on the floor of the United States Senate for confirmation 125 days. And for that reason, Mr. President, I asked unanimous consent that the Senate proceed to executive session to consider the following nomination, calendar 375, that is Thomas A. Shannon Jr., that the Senate proceed to vote without intervening action or debate on the nomination, that if confirmed, the motion to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table.
Is there objection?
Mr. President,
Senator from Utah?
on behalf of the junior senator from Texas, I object.
Objection is heard.
Mr. President, let me now bring to the chair's attention John Estrada for Trinidad and Tobago to be our ambassador. John Estrada has been waiting for confirmation on the floor of the United States Senate for 217 days. 217 days. The Republic of Trinidad and Tobago in the Caribbean has been used as a way station for drug smugglers shipping their products to the United States, which has caused steadily increasing violence and drug activities. We all talk about the war on drugs. We need a confirmed ambassador if we're going to have all hands on deck in our campaign to keep America safe. In 2015, the State Department gave the island nation the crime rating of critical. We need an American of impeccable standing who commands wide respect both here in the United States and in Trinidad and Tobago itself to effectively represent our interests there. We are very fortunate that the President has nominated John Estrada, a leading business executive and a former 15th Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps. Mr. President, Mr. Estrada has a compelling American story. He was born in Trinidad and Tobago and immigrated to the United States when he was only 12 years of age. Mr. President, Mr. Estrada served in the United States Marine Corps for 34 years. In 2003, he was made Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps. I want to make sure my colleagues understand just what an honor that is. It is the 9th and highest enlisted rank in the Marine Corps. The Sergeant Major is the senior enlisted advisor to the Commandant of the Marine Corps. In a singular honor, only one Marine is chosen every 4 years to serve as Sergeant Major. For Mr. Estrada to be chosen as the 15th Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps is a testament to the degree of his trust and confidence that the command of the Marine Corps has in his abilities and skills. Mr. Estrada truly exemplifies the Corps' bedrock values of honor, commitment, and courage. While such virtues are their own reward, Mr. Estrada's achievements have been repeatedly recognized over the course of his military service. He has received the Distinguished Service Medal in 2007, the Bronze Star Medal in 2003, the Meritorious Service Medal in 1998, 2000, 2001, and 2003. Mr. President, there are over 50 more honors I could tell my colleagues about that he has earned. The qualification of this highly accomplished nominee remain unchallenged, nor has any objection been advanced as to his experience or the posts which he is to take up. He has twice been favorably reported from the Senate Foreign Relations Committee by unanimous support. I've expressed my disappointment and confusion then as to why we have not moved forward with Mr. Estrada. Mr. President, we all speak whenever we can to say thank you to the men and women who have worn the uniform of this country to preserve the freedom of America. Here's an individual who has devoted his entire life to defending America, his entire life to defending our country, has accomplished extraordinary results as a member of the armed forces, and now is prepared to serve our country in a very difficult position where law enforcement is desperately needed. It's for that reason I would hope that after 217 days that my colleagues would be prepared to vote on this nominee. So therefore, I ask unanimous consent that the Senate proceed to executive session to consider the following nomination, calendar 329. That's the John L. Estrada to be Ambassador Extraordinaire of the United States of America to the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, that the Senate proceed to vote without intervening action or debate on the nomination, that if confirmed, the motion to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table.
Is there an
President?
objection? Senator from Utah?
On behalf of the junior senator from Texas, I object.
Objection is heard.
Mr. President, if I might, I'm going to yield the floor and would acknowledge that Senator Klobuchar is on the floor. I know that she has a nomination that she wants to bring to the attention of our colleagues. I want to thank Senator Klobuchar for being on the floor. She's been very much involved in our nominees, particularly for Norway, but also Sweden. And I thank her for her leadership in bringing these nominations to the attention of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, the work that she has done to try to advance these nominations. She has been steadfast in the need for us to act on these nominations. And with that, I would yield the floor.